Hi, my name is Sophie McGurk. I'm a graduate fellow here at the Hub, and I am in the second year of my PhD with the Classics department. My project is titled Killing the Father, Cultural Fathers and Paternal Influence in Hibernian Philhellenism. So my project aims to explore the idea of cultural fathers in Irish Classicism and how the tensions that are present in the Irish classical tradition, which I've termed here as Hibernian Philhellenism, manifest in their lives, works and relationships. My central figure is Oscar Wilde, poet, dramatist and classical scholar, and I'm going to be examining his relation to two further key characters. The first is J.P. Mahaffy, Wilde's tutor at Trinity, and with whom he had a close personal relationship. And the second figure is Colm Tóibín, one of Ireland's prime contemporary authors and critics who follows Wilde across the canon. So of Mahaffy, Wilde said that he was the scholar who taught him how to love Greek things, yet really it was what the pair disagreed over, and the elements of Mahaffy's tutelage and opinion that Wilde actually chose to reject that would come to define the legacy of that relationship, which really speaks more closely to a separate remark that Wilde made to his friend William Rothenstein: in literature it is always necessary to kill your father. So as much as Mahaffy taught Wilde how to think about classicism and society more generally, he also inadvertently showed him how not to think about them and how to simultaneously kill or usurp his influence, so to speak. Wilde famously used classical illusion and classical models to verbalise and imagine his sexuality in a Victorian context. We see it in his poetry, especially, but we also see it in the picture of Dorian Gray, in De Profundis, and in The Love That Dares Not Speak Its Name speech from the dock. A century later, Tóibín still looks to Wilde as a way to understand how we think and write about homosexuality. In his non-fiction work, Love in a Dark Time, Tóibín admits that his own sexuality was not a matter he truly felt he could speak about. And in his own words, he even says that he had nothing polemical, personal, or even serious to say on the matter. However, one way in which he could begin to do this was indirectly through an exploration of Wilde. In Mad, Bad and Dangerous to Know, Tóibín explores the relationship between Sir William Wilde and Oscar Wilde. Yet while doing so, he sort of blends this non-fiction account into more of a personal memoir, as he intersperses an account of his own experience reading De Profundis in Wilde's own cell in Reading Jail. He describes this highly sentimental experience, and it's quite a charming and unique feature in the narrative, because by placing himself and his own fond yet naturally indirect connection with Wilde between tales of Wilde's parentage and childhood, it's almost to say that the effect that Wilde has had on him has been paternal. Colm Tóibín's 2004 novel The Master opens with the lines, "At night he dreamed about the dead." If we look at this outside the context of the novel, this really actually speaks to a trend in Irish literature, one that has been widely recognised by scholars, that of an obsession with the past. As I see it, not only do preceding authors lurk in the background as cultural fathers, but so too do the classics as one of Ireland's cultural forefathers. The study of classics and the respect that it commanded dates back to the Middle Ages in Ireland, not only through textual evidence, but also through what is believed to be a legendary ancestral link between the Irish and the Greeks through a group known as the Fir Bolg. The chronological span of the project between the late 19th century and the present is really significant, as it engages with an era of modern Irish social history when questions of identity were really at the forefront. Historically, the Irish have considered their literary history to be a defining feature of a shared identity, and this identity, I believe, is heavily reliant on past works from antiquity. And I see this obsession with the past as being inextricable from our cultural fathers, be they figures like Wilde, or be it a certain Greek kinship that Synge recognised in Ireland. For example, during the Gaelic literary revival, despite the original intentions of celebrating and creating a distinct Gaelic and Celtic past, what we really see are new, original, classically inspired works coming to the forefront by the main players, people like Yeats, people like Synge. In 1926, Yeats even staged a controversial production of Oedipus, his own version of it, in the Abbey. At this time, Oedipus was actually banned in the UK under British censorship laws, but it wasn't here in Ireland. So Yeats really capitalised on this and used classics to construct an Irish cultural identity that was distinctly, and in this case even legally, different from that of Britain. Yeats was not the first person to use classics in this way. Previously in 1915, we saw Pearse using classical ideology to construct his famous graveside oration at the funeral of O'Donovan Rossa, which was actually closely inspired by Pericles' funerary oration of 431 BC. And this speech at the graveside really did constitute a seminal event in the lead up to the 1916 Rising. So really what I'm doing is looking at how these Irish cultural fathers use classicism to understand very Irish issues. To take Tobin as an example here again, we see how he uses the Ars Dei as a way to approach and understand the violence of the Troubles through his 2017 novel, House of Names. As well as an obsession with the past, Irish literature is similarly preoccupied with patriarchal structures, the power of the Catholic Church in Irish society, the power of empire, and the family structure itself. And in each of these cases, there is generally a sort of Oedipal attempt to overthrow this power. In his non-fiction and fiction alike, Tobin has written extensively about father figures, some who are present in the narrative, and some who are marked by very notable and effective absences. So it's quite striking that the Greek tragedy that he chose to rewrite, and that is admittedly inspired by events of the Troubles, is one in which the main action is propelled by the murder of Agamemnon, the father figure in the myth, and the figure of authority in Mycenae at that time. So really what my project hopes to show is that paternal influence exists in Ireland as a critical theme, but also that the classics are repeatedly employed as one of our cultural forefathers to understand acutely Irish experiences. If you'd like to chat to me more about this, you can do so through my Twitter at smcgurk98 or through my email smcgurk@tcd.ie.